Today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast is brought to you by Toro Australia, and more specifically their new 60-volt Revolution Professional battery tool lineup. If you're interested in that, more about it later in the podcast. Thank you, Toro Australia. All right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. We've got Daniel Althaus, landscape designer. Welcome to the podcast, Daniel.
Thank you so much, mate. It's I feel like I've been watching and listening to your podcast for some time, so it's good to. Obviously, we've met at one of your World Arena events, so we got to meet there. But no, it's good to finally sit down and have a bit of a chat about business and plants that you might not know, or rocks,
designs, and
all the fun things. Cool.
One of the previous guests on the podcast, Daniel Fuller, said recently that you were one of his favorite landscape designers. So how do you get to a point where someone says that about you? Do you pay them a lot of money, or is it just a little bit of money?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what happens is I send Daniel ahead of time to all the places that I go into a podcast or media events, and he just he spooks me a little bit, but no.
Yeah, exactly. You must be sending him something to manipulate him to get that.
Yeah. No, it's very flattering, very humbling to have someone even put me in a category that would remotely be their favorite designer. So I'm immensely kind of flattered by that. But I think it's just you kind of just do what you do, and trying to create gardens that are in my head and create them in real life. I think that's the biggest part of it all, right? Just creating and having fun with it.
So when did you discover that you had a creative design eye? Because I'm creative. I like creating things, but I don't have the, I'm mediocre. I'm not rubbish, but I do not know how to make amazingly beautiful spaces out of nothing. Like I don't have that in my arsenal. When did you discover that you got something like that?
Look, I think, from a pretty young age, like I'm talking primary school even, like I was drawing a lot, and I just, and that kind of pushed well into my, adolescence and adult life. Like I had art galleries and stuff like that. And so I've always been a bit of a creative, and always had a pretty fervent love for nature, I think. Always wanting to go out bush or do stuff like that. That's definitely been a constant throughout my life. When I kind of started landscaping, it was I kind of tripped and fell into the industry, to be honest. But when I was there, it was all in. I'm not sure whether you know this, but my landscaping career, I guess, started with my mother-in-law doing maintenance and building just small gardens. But quickly learning that you can really grab that creative element, and if you see a garden as a canvas, a living canvas, there's some pretty epic opportunities for some color and form and space, and like you can get pretty wild. If the budget's there, we can do some pretty crazy stuff. So
So if you're going to a standard backyard, I'm saying a residential backyard, let's call it 100 square meters, which would be generous actually for today's time. But let's say you've got a 100 square meter backyard. It's blank. There's 3 fences, that you got to work with. There's just the soil there. When you're going into that, what's the first thing that's crossing your mind? What are you first thinking about? And if money was not an object, right, where are you going? What are you doing? Just give us a bit of your thought process.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, getting to know the clients, getting to know the people is such an important thing. asking the right questions and working out how they live their life. I think one really fun thing I like to do is, and it's probably a little bit not obscure, but I I really like clients to take me through kind of their house, and specifically show me where the windows are. Where do you sit? Where do you have breakfast in the morning? What gets used the most? And capitalizing on windows and where the sun hits a spot, or that's where you start, because they're the things that are the constants, right? They're the backbone
Yeah.
of their existence. That they're at home a big chunk of the time, and so you got to lean into that. Um, Things like the windows that can frame a garden so beautifully. It's so important. Do you know what I mean? So there's one thing I love when if you open a door and you can look straight through someone's house and see their backyard, and it's just framed in such a beautiful way, man. That's I'm done. That's me.
So that's interesting because you're thinking about it, viewing it from the inside, whereas I would have already started thinking about like how does it look right now outside as it is. But you're right, you're not spending anywhere near as much time actually out in the garden as you are inside with the
Yeah,
kids, whatever, working on your laptop at the kitchen table or whatever.
for sure. But in saying that, like my goal is to always pull the clients from their house into the garden, creating rooms, creating little nooks that, even though they know what's around the corner, you want to entice them out. You want to entice them into that seating area that's tucked under a beautiful eucalypt that's just sitting over their head. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever it is. That's the windows and creating a space inside the house for me is the start. But then you try and drag them out. That's the whole goal.
So then, let's say you've got that, you started with that, you're starting to get some ideas of where you can go. Are there go-to plants? Are there go-to shapes or anything like that where you're, by shape, I mean like from a bird's eye view, where you're like, this creates a great, atmosphere or something like that. Is there just things that straight away, if I've got free reign here and, the client's not super picky, I'm going for this because it always works?
Yeah. Look, I'm a big fan of creating sort of form within movement, if that makes sense. So having like big groups of either with stringent balls or something along those lines, where they anchor the garden, and they don't have to be big, but just anchor the garden and coupling them with somewhat tall grasses or adding pops of color. I think when you've got free reign, it's almost in the moment. It's not something that I always lean on. I've obviously got a style of Australian native, and I'll always, wherever the garden is, like we've been doing stuff in Brisbane, we've been doing stuff regional Vic, Melbourne, all over the place at the moment. But is to really tap into the councils and be like, right, what's the Indigenous planting lists here, and can we lean on that at all? Because the go-to will always be to try and bring birds, bees, lizards, frogs, all that kind of stuff into a garden while still making it look very modern and contemporary and designed, because that's what you want when you get a designer in. That's what you want. You want a designed looking garden. Do you know what I mean? So to have those fourth dimensions of adding water and having birds come and play and all those kind of things, like that's something pretty special, I think. So when you ask what's my go-to, it's like where do we go? We can go anywhere.
Well, it's almost like the go-to is, it sounds like, well, you need to know what does well in that area first.
100%. Yeah.
So then, are there, when I'm looking at your projects that you've done, right? You've got, and we'll show some photos later, but you kind of have this, what I would call, it is that balance. You called it movement, but I'm going to call it like it's messy in a neat way.
It is.
And
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah.
because I feel like the really formal gardens, people know what a formal garden is, and people know what a completely neglected garden is. And the formal gardens, the problem with them is they're geometrical and they've got these beautiful straight hedges and all that sort of stuff, and everything lines up. But the problem is, as soon as they start growing a little bit, you have to keep cutting the hedge. You have to keep maintaining it. You can't let it go. Stonefields would be a great example, where the whole point
Exactly
of it
right.
is
Yeah.
how even all the hedges are and how perfectly square they are. So as soon as they're fluffy, and I've seen pictures of them fluffy when
Yeah.
Craig from Southern Cross Gardens was pruning them, you're like,
Yeah.
it's lost all of its effect. It's not that
Yeah.
interesting anymore. Whereas the
Yeah.
gardens that you kind of design, I think they're very popular in this way, that they look really thought out and planned,
Yeah.
and they don't look highly maintained, right? So give me
Yeah.
your thoughts on that whole idea.
I think it's interesting, the topic of maintenance, because I'm sure you being a maintenance guy, and myself also starting in that kind of realm, I actually really enjoy it. So I love getting out in the garden, but a lot of times clients will say to me, I want a low maintenance garden. I don't want to have to think about watering. I don't want to have to think about cutting back every couple of months. I don't want to have to think about this. I don't want to have to think about that. So that's the and as you know, there is no maintenance garden unless you're putting astroturf, which as I'm sure you're on the same page as me, but we don't talk about
Yep.
that. Yeah, there is no maintenance garden. So having that balance, I think, between a little bit of maintenance, a little bit of we'll call it messy, and having things grow a little bit wild, but making sure you're on top of the scheduling of maintenance. So even though it is wild, it's full. It's really full. So within the paper daisies or the osmanthus or whatever it is that are kind of popping off through the forms and shapes that we've created, you've got these beautiful little pops of color. And I think when you're using natives as a whole, it's usually pretty low maintenance. So it means you can have these pretty spectacular gardens, and the maintenance on them, it's not through the roof. So you can have something pretty special and not be completely overwhelmed by the thought of looking after it, which is super handy.
You're looking at getting a new battery tool lineup for your business this spring, have a look at the new Toro 60 volt Revolution Professional series. I recently had the opportunity to head down to the Brisbane headquarters of Toro, and I got my hands on some of these tools, and I can honestly say that there's some really well built tools. The Revolution series runs off the 60 volt Flex Force system, and it powers a whole range of tools, including line trimmer, hedge trimmer, blower, and the 21-inch heavy-duty 60-volt mower. The line trimmer and the hedge trimmer can be run through the onboard batteries, just like you would expect, but also through the backpack linkage, which means that if you have large commercial jobs, it lightens the load and makes it a much easier job for you. There are a lot of interesting innovations in this lineup, including a 6-port multi-charger that you can put on the wall, which is really useful if you're running and relying on a battery system. And like I said, there's a whole lineup of tools ready to go for your business on this platform. So if you want to find out more information, head to the Toro website. There's a link in the description, or to your local Toro dealer. Thank you, Toro, for sponsoring this part of the podcast. On your on the topic of maintenance, what is your feelings or your personal kind of gut feel about lawns? Your personal view on putting that in gardens? Because there's a
I was terrified of this question.
If you answer wrong,
God.
I'm going to call Daniel Fuller and I'm going to say, don't recommend this guy anymore, right?
Yeah.
No, tell me your honest thoughts.
It's funny because again, like I come across a lot of different clients, and they all have a checklist. I like to call it a checklist, or wants and needs of what people want. 8 times out of 10, the dad taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hey, for me to be a good dad, I need to have a pristine lawn. Can you design that in for me? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can design it in for you. I can design the space. I can select a specific type of lawn that would work in your climate. But I will always opt for a native substitute. So whether it be the kangaroo grass that kind of sits this tall, where you can kind of pop your mower up to the highest setting and you can run it over once every 6 months and it looks amazing. It looks like a little meadow. I will always put something like that in because it's super low maintenance. It looks incredible. And for kids, having like I've designed circular lawn sections. So there's like multiple circled sections with that in it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get like a mix, like a native seed mix. I think it's got kangaroo grass. There's a few other mixes depending on where you are in Australia. But watching that come up and grow, and I've maintained a few gardens that have it, and it's pretty special, man. So yeah, not to poo-poo the pristine
lawn industry,
cut lawn. Yeah. It's funny that,
if
like,
you haven't got checkerboard stripes on it, I don't know what you're doing. If it's not less than 20 millimeters, I can't. No, I don't care.
Right.
This is one of the things about. I'm of the opinion that, like, people should be allowed to do what they want to a certain degree, as long as they're not breaking the law. But in the back, it's like, I mean, do whatever you want. Just don't have a cannon in the back of your yard. Point at your neighbors whenever the party goes a little bit too late. Okay, you're probably taking a little bit far there. But when it comes to designing a garden, it's like, it's your garden. You can do what you want. And I take exception to people who then go on Instagram and will comment on, say, Nick Bransgrove's lawn and be like, "You should change your garden." It's like, it's his garden, and if he was as aggressive towards your garden or whoever it is that's commenting, no one changes their mind from those sorts of comments.
No.
But then there's a lot of people out there who, and we have them on the podcast, and I have these conversations. They're like, I don't use lawn. I don't care about the lawn. I love the birds, right? Lawn's not really going to attract many birds. Not if the whole thing's lawn, so there's completely different goals.
Exactly right. And I think if somebody wanted communication of
there you go.
It comes down to the communication of the client as well. It's just like we've got kids and we want to have this element or a sunken trampoline or whatever it is. It's like you accommodate that into whatever, and you dream that up. Do you know what I mean? You can be creative with whatever checklist they have, and if that is lawn, absolutely, I'm putting it in there. And lawn absolutely looks amazing when it's done right. So yeah, I'll definitely put it in.
I feel that lawns without the gardens look a bit naked. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's for me, if I had that rectangle 100 square meters, right, like I would, I'd be wanting maybe 30% of that to be garden, depending on, what's around, like, is there not, I'd love a big tree. I'd love, a place to sit, how can you make the best out of that, but at the end of the day, the lawn almost is a complement to everything else around it. Like, it itself is not necessarily the star of the show a lot of the time.
Yeah. And it comes down to, again, that question of how do you use the space? And like, if you live in Brisbane and you've just got lawn, your kids are going to get melanoma. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're going to need to have some kind of shade. You need to have something going on to make the space usable. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, and trees and plants are the best way to do that. Obviously, there's heaps of other ways that you can kind of make a space usable, but yeah, garden beds they definitely complement the lawn. That's for sure.
What's your go-to or your favorite tree, assuming it could survive and thrive in the area you're planting it, assuming it's going really well? Like, one of my favorites over here in WA is Cassia fistula, or the golden shower tree, because
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
there's a bit of a sentimentality to it. My granddad's got one. We had one at the house, previous house, and when they flower, it is the most beautiful golden, just amazing.
Yeah.
They are deciduous, so they lose their leaves. But to me,
Yeah.
like as a feature plant, it's amazing, and I would love to put one when I eventually get the property that I'm hoping to get one day. But
Yeah.
is there
Yeah.
something like that? There's a sentimental feeling, or it's just so good, everyone loves it.
I since I've started designing, I've seen um, a lot of beauty in different elements of trees. So a lot of people think, all right, how does it flower? Kind of what is the foliage? How does it sit in the space? All those kind of things, which are extremely important, obviously. But I think one of my favorite trees is the ironbark tree, because when it starts to mature, obviously, and I'm sure you've seen it before, they turn sort of jet black, and they've got these deep um, crevices all through the trunk, and they can be such a yeah. There you go, to or four across. I think it is. Yeah, yeah. So having that, and you can kind of couple them in threes. So when you couple them semi close together, um,
Yeah,
it's they kind of stunt their growth a little bit. So um, and the foliage is sort of top heavy. So now you're then looking at these three beautiful black trunks in the middle of a garden, or something along those lines, with nice underplanting, or
right.
something
Mm.
along those lines. Do you know what I mean? So um, yeah, things like that. Things like the ironbark tree, I've really fallen in love with, because they're just so architectural, and if you couple them with the right kind of planting scheme, it's unreal. They're extremely striking, and yeah, I've planted a few in my time, and seeing them sort of grow up now, and seeing them sort of turn that really dark black. Um,
Yeah.
and as you walk into the garden, it's the first thing you see, and it's just like, wow, that's gonna look unreal. Like, they get pretty tall,
Yeah.
so yeah, they're very cool trees. But I've got a list of trees and plants I could throw at you, going, yeah, this one's cool for
No,
this
that's a
one's cool
great
for
answer.
that. But yeah, yeah,
Well, this comes down to one of those philosophies that I'm hearing about and I'm learning about, where people are trying to get the color in the garden or the interest in the garden from things that are not flowers, because the flowers are so temporary that you end up planting a tree for, you know, the flowering season, which might be 4 weeks. And then there's
yeah,
48 weeks left in the rest of the year, and it looks okay. Instead of going, what you're just saying there, which is let's plant something that's going to look, or there's where there's an aspect of it that isn't flowers that's beautiful, or could be presented in
yeah,
a way that makes it look amazing. And
yeah.
I think you do that quite a bit in your gardens too, right?
Yeah, I think leaning into sort of other elements like the foliage or the form, or so you're not really leaning too heavily on a flower that is somewhat temporary. You can kind of lean on things where you have a shift through, obviously, through seasons and design to that. One thing that kind of still sticks with me is talking to Michael McCoy. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but him and I were having a chat, and he was speaking about designing a garden to, let's just say, spring. So everything that you design and you put in that garden is designed to sort of flower and be at its best for that period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start fluffing the edges, and you start putting things in that might go, that start flowering, like a wattle or something like that, where it kind of really bridges the flowering period from sort of winter into spring. and again on
Yep.
the other side with summer, and fluffing those edges as the garden evolves. And I think that's such a beautiful way to have a garden, because a lot of people think when you get a designer, you're going to design this garden and that's it. It's going to stay like this forever. But gardens are evolving. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, when you talk about, I guess, flowers and how they kind of change, that happens. It's a fleeting moment that these flowers pop and then leave.
Yep.
So kind of designing a garden for the client to kind of enjoy the ride almost as well. Obviously, you design the garden to have the backbones and the form and the structure and all those kind of things, so that the client can then play and fluff with the edges from there. But yeah, like it's such an interesting concept when you're talking about flowering plants and what you want to be the showpiece, I guess.
So tell me now about the Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show, because you've done it twice. You've got really good feedback. Your gardens are really unique. I'm going to chuck them on the screen now. This is the 2024, so the latest one. Yep. And I've wondered about this because there's criteria, right? Well, you explain to me how what's it like, and how do you go into this as a designer, and how do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's how I started. I guess I should probably preface this is I started at the Achievable section in 2023, and so I did that through because I was studying at Melbourne Polytechnic, and I did my Cert 4 in landscape design there. So I was able to do the first MIFGS with them. And yeah, it's for me, obviously having a bit more of an art background, it's essentially a canvas. Like you get to, like the one that you're showing right now is a 5x5, whereas the one in 2023 is a 5x4.
And this is 2023 one now on the screen.
Yeah, that's the one that I did as a, I guess we'll call it as a student, but I mean I was running my business by then. But so you get with this one here, you get sort of 3 walls, and it's a 5x4 space, and you get to just do whatever. Obviously, you have to submit your plans to the uni. And then they select it, and then they send it to the Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show, and they have to approve it. Mm-hmm. So, but I guess when it comes to a space like this where there's lots of eyes on you and your design, and you really need to pull something pretty special out of your hat, you start to think pretty crazy. You're right. What can I do here? You think outside the box. Where can I put plants? Where can I put water? What's a weird shape I can chuck in there? Do you know what I mean? Like you just start thinking about really obscure elements that you can place in there. So, and like this garden here, that's got a 3-tiered pond in it, and you can't really see it because it's covered in plants. But I don't know whether you can. That's the path there, but
there we go.
There you go. There's a bit of the pond there. So that's the bottom tier, and it kind of, obviously goes down. But the garden was called the Circles of Life for obviously the amount of circles that are in it.
There's a lot of circles.
Yeah.
Couldn't be called the Triangles of Life. Yeah. Triangles.
But no, it was meant to kind of demonstrate what Australian natives could do in a wildlife setting, like as in attracting birds and bees and even sort of fish and frogs and things like that. So, but yeah, really kind of trying to push the boundaries a little bit on sort of how things look. And like if you stand back from that garden, there was a point where you kind of look straight through that circular bird bath. And then, that's kind of a better photo. Yeah. And you sort of, you're almost looking at yourself.
Changed it.
Yeah.
All right. I see.
That one there. Yeah. Yeah. So you're almost looking at yourself and that that mirror is kind of like sitting probably 300 mil above the bird bath. So just little design elements like that, where you really want to smash that detail to a real different level. So yeah, that one was a lot of fun to really create, and like that one's been in a UK magazine. Like there's been a lot of press on this one, so it's and it kind of takes on a life of its own, which is pretty amazing. Yeah, I miss it actually.
So
I miss the garden.
what happens to it all when it's finished? Because you, for those who don't know, basically the show is what 5 days, something
Five
like that.
days. Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
incredible. Like you get 9 days on site to build it, and I don't know if you've seen. I don't know if your listeners have seen kind of some of the big gardens that get built there. But 9 days, that is not a lot of time. It's you're even stretching it with stuff like this, the small ones. Do you know what I mean? So you go from 9 days on site building, and then you've got 5 days of showtime where you've got thousands of people come through each day, and you talk to the public about that, and that's usually the big days as well. And then you get 2 to 3 days to pack it down, which is absolutely devastating.
I can imagine.
A lot of designers just walk away. They've obviously got crews and things like that, and a lot of people just walk away. They're just like, you guys can pull it down because I can't bring myself to, because you got to think too. Like, I mean, me designing this one was a fairly short space of time. So we started designing maybe October the year before. So you've got like 6 months, 7 months, maybe 8 months of planning. So that's a lot of time where you're like, that's in your head every day.
Yeah,
Especially the one this year, the big wave. That was Eugene from Claycon Landscapes and I. Yeah, we were scratching our heads on this one. This one was tough to build, and obviously Eugene did an amazing job coming up with it. That's a 2.5 meter wave made out of moss. Do you know what I mean? Like, just crazy. And it's like
with
it
a red carpet strip through the middle of it. Which contrasts so nicely.
Yeah. So yeah, the design intent with this one was to have more of a juxtaposition from traditional landscaping and to really lean into, like, everything there's Australian native. Do you know what I mean? And showcasing what you can do with Australian natives.
It doesn't look native.
No, and that's the thing, is like we really wanted to push people's perception of what a native garden looks like. So I don't know whether you can get the side wall up where it was kind of like checker plated.
Here we
it's
go.
got like let's have a look. Yeah, that one there. Yeah. So that's the native violet and Dichondra repens tiny. So that's been like sewed onto a steel frame in a checker plate form. Do you know what I mean? Like that's, yeah.
Are these? Yeah.
They're the plant.
What are they growing in? Yeah, right.
Yeah,
they're just growing in like.
So we put a bit of a membrane. Yeah, we put a bit of a membrane, but like all internal as well. Like that's live moss. We had Coda moss come in and hang all that moss, and that's live foraged moss. Do you know what I mean? Like coming in sheets and stuff. And he was in there for 2 days hanging that upside down. But yeah, like we had a misting system run through the whole thing, and but yeah, show gardens are a different beast, man, and they're pretty all consuming. So yeah, we've done 2 now, and I'm giving it a break because, or just a year break, because the first one that I did 2 weeks before show day my little daughter was born. So now she's been coined the Mifkus baby. So anytime the show's on, it's her birthday. So yeah, I got to be careful.
Man, not to get too graphic here, but I reckon the Mifkus baby would actually be the baby born exactly 9 months after Mifkus. You know what I
mean?
That's kind of, you know what I mean.
For sure.
But look, there's actually a famous soccer player who has, I think, 3 kids all born on the same day, but they're not twins or anything.
Oh, really?
And it's just like, mate, there's something that's happening. There's something going around that time of year. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
So, do people come to you? I'll put this one up because this is probably the best photo capturing the idea of the wave here. Do people come up to you and then go, I literally want this at my house now? Or is it more a design thing where you're pushing the boundary? Because I feel like this with fashion. You see these people walk down the catwalk and you're like, no one's ever going to wear that. But that's not actually the point of what it's trying to do. Is that the kind of same thing here?
Yeah, look, again, we can make a pretty drastic comparison between my first garden and this one. Obviously, the first one, it's very transferable. Yeah, I literally have built a very similar garden. And in fact, the garden in my front garden will look very similar to the very first show garden I did. So it's transferable. Whereas the wave is not as transferable. The planting palette is. I did have a few people come up to me and say, how much is it for you to basically build this on a bigger scale in my house? In my garden. And I kind of looked at it and just went, I wouldn't even know how to quote that. Like, it's something, do you know what I mean? Like, and you'd have to really think about the longevity of the plants, and the design would then need to be taken to another level. So in answer to your question, I did have people that wanted the wave in their garden. I think it's, you got to talk to them about how to maintain all that, and that the idea was to showcase a plant palette and show it in a different way, and show us kind of pushing the boundary, and I think that's what the Melbourne International Flower Garden Show should be about, is really pushing the boundaries of what a garden can be. There's a lot of guys that do kind of play it safe and fair whack to them, because it is a financial hit that you have to do to sort of build a show garden. So you want to kind of protect your asset, I guess that's what I'm trying to say is by playing it safe, you can.
Yeah, exactly right. So
I fumbled that a little bit, but you're going to get more conversions, so to speak, if you do a nice garden that's transferable versus this. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, the wave definitely got some eyeballs and some people talking. So, and that's what it was designed for. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to push the boundaries and have conversations with other designers, and I think that's what it hit with a lot of people is it was other people in the industry were like, almost, thank you for kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit. So I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we kind of did something a bit different.
It kind of reminds me of a little bit like the wisteria tunnels that they have in Japan and places like that. Have you seen these before?
Yeah, for sure. They're unreal.
They're
very cool.
I mean, yours will be so much harder to make because this is just a frame. It's literally just a frame with wisteria growing over it. But
it's very
one day when I get a big property, I've loved these things since I was like 15. Like, I remember seeing a picture of me. Like, oh my goodness, I want to do this because it's actually not that hard to make. It takes forever for the wisteria to grow over to be that healthy and thick. If you started from scratch.
In saying that, in saying that, like we put some wisterias in a garden here in Ballarat, and it's been in there for 12 months, and it's gone overhead and kind of wrapped across. So it's you give it a couple of years and it's on its way. Do you know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah.
give it some
Well, I
success,
actually
it'll be fine.
yes, yeah, that's all you need. No, I've got a wisteria up on top of the frame or the racking system.
All right. Yeah.
When my when I was a kid, my parents we were in a larger property, and there was a wisteria that was 100 and something years old that had grown
Hmm.
over a carport.
Yeah.
And
Right.
anyways, beautiful wisteria, massive thing. And the carport got knocked down accidentally by a guy in a bobcat who was demolishing a decrepit
Oh.
house. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think he didn't know. Anyway, maybe it was deliberate, and he didn't know that he wasn't supposed to knock it over or whatever. I don't know,
Yeah.
something happened, and they kept the wisteria growing on the ground. Anyways, my granddad took a cutting of it and put it at his house, and
Yeah.
we moved on from that house. And I remember that wisteria very fondly. Anyway, my granddad
Yeah.
then grew a cutting of the cutting, and that's what's up there.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of
Oh,
we've got
amazing.
we've got the wisteria already that we want to
That's
grow.
so good.
It's
Yeah.
it's been growing indoors. It's survived, but it's not thriving.
Yeah.
Right, it's not
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
enough light for
Needs.
what it really needs. But it'll
Yeah.
live, and
Needs a
it'll
bit of
live
love.
until the day where one day we'll put on
Chuck
this thing.
it
So it's
down.
the genuine plan.
Yeah.
The other one I want to do is orange trumpet vine in a
Oh,
similar way.
yes.
You won't get the flowers hanging down. It would look
Yeah.
amazing
Yeah.
from the
It's
outside.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I can just imagine
It's
I'm
more
actually thinking from a kid's perspective, and having these cool
for sure.
tunnels to run and play in, and
Yeah.
even if there's no flowers on them, how awesome would that be?
Yeah. It's very doable. Do you know what I mean? Like yeah, that would be very cool. It's interesting. You say about like being a kid or the eyes of a kid. Like I've just started doing my garden at home, and at first you're going, oh right, I'm gonna design my full garden, and it's going to be this massive showpiece, and we're going to pull out all the stops. But obviously now I've got a little girl, and the whole design's changed, and you're like, right, how do we make it cool for her? Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, of
yeah, I
course.
totally hear what you're saying. You got to make these adjustments, I guess, and yeah, make it cool for the little ones, and they're going to enjoy it the most, right?
Recently, I made a small business course called the Aussie Green Biz Mastery Course. It's for people who are starting out in the industry or who have been in maybe for a year or two, and they're really good at the gardening side, but they struggle on the business side. There's 47 lessons that cover everything from how to get great clients to how to work out your pricing, how to work out a system that's efficient, and ultimately set up a business that is going to be successful. Essentially, what I did is I thought about myself as a 19-year-old. I thought, looking back when I started my business, what would I tell my 19-year-old self to help him avoid all the stupid mistakes that I ended up making and have success in a much quicker time frame? If you know somebody who wants to start a business, it's made for them. If you're struggling in your business, you love the industry, and you want a successful business, this is made for you. We recently added the option as well to break down the payment over 4 months, so it makes it a little bit more affordable for those who are just starting out. The course is called the Aussie Green Biz Mastery Course. For more information, follow the link. If you're wanting to upgrade your lawn care this season, jump on today's sponsor, The Lawn Shed. Lawn Shed stock a full range of everything you need for great lawn care, from fertilizers to wetting agents to soil amendments to pre-emergent, post-emergent, plant growth regulators, everything that you could need. Their products are actually the products used by stadiums across the country. I know, I've seen them in the sheds there when I've done tours. My opinion has always been that if you're going to charge for a service, use the best quality stuff you can get. So jump on the Lawn Shed today, sign up for a trade account, and tell them that you heard about their services through the podcast. Thank you so much for supporting Lawn Shed. One of my questions for you, mate, is when they're making these
Mm-hmm.
gardens. So, say we
Mm-hmm.
take any of these plants. Is that Westringia there? I think it is. Is that still
Yes. Yeah.
in the pot? Do you put
Yeah.
the pot in the ground so you can pull it straight back out again?
Yeah. It's a tricky one because I'm not sure if you know, but yeah, the Chelsea Flower and Garden Show, they they you can dig into the ground. Like they'll allow you to plant plants. Do you know what I mean? Whereas here in Melbourne, you can't actually penetrate the ground at all. Um, yeah,
Right.
so everything has to be raised up. There's a lot of framework, and everything's in pots. So yeah, I think you can see on my Instagram. There's a sort of kind of like a progress of what the first garden looks like. I think if you go down to, it's like a green tile that just says Mifkus progress. Um,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, that's the one. So you can kind of
Ah,
see there's a few
you
little
start with a
renders and bits and
frame.
pieces. Mm,
Well, I'll explain it to the people. I'll go through the photos. So you've got a render there of what you wanted it to look like. Did you get the
yeah,
bird in the end? Did the bird land there in
funny.
that exact spot?
Funny you
Or?
should say that. We put it in the Angophora and we tucked it up. Obviously, it's a fake bird, but yeah, certain people would be like, "Oh, there's an actual bird in there," and we'd had bird noises and things going off, and so that was cool.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, we did have a bird.
No, you didn't get it's still smoke and mirrors, mate.
It is.
So
It
then
is.
you can see all the carpentry being done for the circular pots and the walls.
Yeah,
Moving along, then you've got, what is this? That tile? Is it these
mate.
or is it a
So I that's a stencil of 4 circles that I had to spray paint on plyboard. That's what that is. So have a look at that and understand the level of detail. And I didn't mess up one. So um, yeah, that was tough.
Yeah,
That applied. Yeah, there was a few Red Bulls needed for that night
I can
session
imagine.
of
I can
spray
imagine.
painting circles on the back to your wall. So yeah, it was fun.
Drove you insane at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like you're gonna be crazy to do Mifkis anyway. So, but yeah,
mate, you got to
it's
be crazy to be. You got to be crazy to do anything creative like this. But then looking at this, so then you've raised it up. You can see some sleepers. Well, I've just liked
yeah,
it accidentally. I hated it.
yeah,
I don't know. I didn't mean to like it. No. Then you've got some sleepers. I'm trying to explain to people, and it looks
yeah,
like some hessian at the bottom there, protecting
yeah.
grass underneath.
Yeah, so because there's a lot of mulch and things like that, yeah, we put down hessian just so it's a lot easier to clean for the packer,
Yep.
and it protects the grass and stuff like that. They do obviously have to refurbish the grass and do all that kind of stuff afterwards, but yeah,
Crazy expensive.
it's mainly to
Then
protect.
you
Yeah, yeah,
you put your tree in. Then you've got
yeah,
your 3-tier pond, which you hid
yeah,
very well. It's kind
yeah,
of it's
yeah.
like funny. It's like putting on your makeup on and then putting on a plastic bag on top of your head afterwards. I don't know,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. True, very true. Look, to be fair, when you got closer up, you could definitely see, but you can see off to the left hand side there. There's like it's a Coria alba from Warner's there, and those things are massive. That's like a big 100 liter pot, I think it is.
Yeah, something
Um,
like that. Yeah,
and if you see that in the photos, it just looks like nothing. Do you know what I mean?
it does.
Like
Yeah.
that's a massive Coria alba, and that's just tucking in the side there. So yeah, it's show gardens. It is 100% smoke and mirrors. But
So do you
that's
buy
the
the
fun of it.
plants
Do you
or
know what
do
I mean?
you rent? Do you buy them? Do you rent them? Do you sell them? Do you
It's
buy
a,
them and sell them back? Do the landscape the nurseries go? Oh, we know this is for. We trust you. Here, have a couple of them and just give them back in good nick.
Yeah, it's tricky. I think as time has gone on, I think there's been some people that have not necessarily done the right thing by small nurseries and things like that, which is always a bit of a shame. But as a whole, I mean, you're in the industry. We're very we help each other, and yeah. So a lot of the times, um, they'll just sponsor plants. So Warner's is well, there's so many. Mount Williams, Warner's are really good for that kind of stuff. They'll just cool. This is on loan, and give it back to us after. Do you know what I mean? So it's really quite amazing to see some of the specimens that we do get a hold of. The one that I am planning, and I won't talk about it too much, but the one that I'm kind of planning in the next couple of years, there's going to be some mighty big trees, and it's going to be something. It's going to be something special, that's for sure. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that one. But yeah.
Well, I kind of feel like it makes sense for them because literally, if you have a very popular garden and people go, "Oh, I'd love to copy that," and you're like, "Well, that plant could that literal plant could be purchased from Warner's in about a week," you know. So
and 5 days.
And they go, "Oh well, why?" Fantastic! Like I'm there, you know. Like and they'll get the business. There's advertising as well, so hopefully they come back in,
for sure.
Good order. But back to how the design works, and construction. So there's some platforms you've made, but you've literally raised it up off the whatever was underneath, mulch or grass or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you're putting these plants in. Now, so it looks like then that the plants are just placed in really thick mulch to make it really easy, right?
So you kind of adding mulch to kind of add height. That's the main thing, is just adding height, and then kind of going from there. So, but we wanted this one to be as dense as possible. But like there was plants.
That's how people describe me.
There, like.
How's your experience like, Luke? He's as dense as possible. Sorry.
I'm sure you're not that dense, mate. You're fine.
Keep going. Back to the planting. It's definitely a smoke and mirrors. Moving on from my silly jokes, it is definitely smoke and mirrors where there is this kind of because you wouldn't want to really walk on it, would you? Like you probably could in certain spots, built it, but
we had Melissa from Better Homes and Gardens come and walk on it for a little bit of a TV grab, which was awesome. But we knew that people would walk on it, so we needed to have it pretty squared away, and so we make that part pretty structurally sound with a lot of framework and things like that. But the rest of it's all smoke and mirrors. I wouldn't want to be jumping in on that too heavily. No. So
there you go. And there's that mirror you're talking about. So
I feel right.
There's a lot of effort for this. It seems like it's incredibly expensive to do this. Do you get sponsors? Do you fork it out yourself, knowing it's a marketing expense and it'll get, you earn it back someday? How does it all work?
So I mean, first of all, you've got to be selected. That's sort of the first and foremost thing before any dollars get spoken about. That's sort of the main thing. But once you are selected, there is a level of sponsorship that happens, but it's a small percentage to what you kind of need to outlay. But a lot of people in the industry see it as their marketing budget for the year when they do go in. But it definitely varies from garden to garden, and you can kind of do what you want really, and spend what you want. Obviously, a lot of when sponsors help you out, it's a lot more beneficial for everyone involved, really. That's the best way to kind of do it. And I think obviously now that I've done MIFCUS 2 times in a row, I've built some pretty amazing relationships with people in the industry, and got some what I consider to be lifelong friends now. So it's pretty special to build gardens like this and come out with some pretty awesome people in your back pocket that you just call friends, I guess. So it's awesome.
So, what what is the cost to you on something like this? And I don't need to know the exact numbers, but like, is it tens of thousands? Does it go above 100? Does it, or can you do it for less than 10? Like, where are the ballparks in this kind of thing?
I know that some designers they push the 100,000, but
Yep.
it varies, man. Like because like if you see some of the other gardens where they're like houses, like they're full
Yeah.
outdoor kitted out kitchens, like working barbecues, like all sorts of crazy stuff. They get stuff shipped in from Greece. Do you know what I mean? Like it is just next level stuff that you can
Yep.
do. For smaller gardens, it's obviously not that much. Yeah, sort of 10,000 more, whatever. Pardon me. It does vary on what you do and how far you kind of want to push the boundaries. But you got to get creative with
And I guess how
money.
much you can do on your own as well. Yeah. Like if you can
That's the other big
take
one.
on the labor costs. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, the first one, I was lucky enough to be tagged in with Melbourne Polytechnic. So we had a lot of apprentices and stuff jump in, but a lot of that was built by me. Um, the second one, the one this year, that was pretty much mostly Eugene from Claycon Landscapes. Yeah. When you ask someone to build that, when you show them the plans, and he didn't even hesitate, he was just like, "Yeah, let's do it." Mad respect for that. Do you know what I mean? Like, and he pulled it off. There were many hiccups and things that, as you can imagine, when you're building something like this, um, yeah, they're going to be issues. How to frame a steel wave. Like we framed that and had that on the back of a truck and sort of craned in. Do you know what I mean? Like it was just nuts.
Yeah.
So yeah, fabricating the steel path, the red path there, and yeah, there was just lots of crazy stuff that you have to think about. So yeah, but definitely hats off to Eugene from Claycon Landscapes for pulling this one together.
I wonder if anyone's ever spent, I'm sure it's happened. I wonder if anyone's ever spent so much money that it almost drove them to ruin. Like they didn't get the result they wanted. You know, it
It
could
it's
definitely be tempting.
yeah, that's the thing. Is it's like when you're talking about being creative, and if you've had a good couple of years and you're like, right, I'm going to give this a fair crack. Um, there's definitely been designers out there that are like, right, I want to really showcase what I'm capable of.
Mm.
Um, and when you do, it might not 100% stick for that period of time as well. Like, because you get people, thousands and thousands of people come through, but if that kind of season of design or whatever it is, or people are liking cottage gardens, and I've just done this native garden, it's not going to stick as much. Do you
Mm.
know what I mean? So you're outlaying a lot of
Yeah.
money for something that may not stick, and I guess it's the risk you take. But sometimes you just got to back yourself and back your product and back your style, and that's tough to do sometimes.
Well, I've got an idea. Okay, I want you to rate my idea. Ready? We'll go
Hit
for one of
me.
those small little gardens. Okay, we go for one of those small little
Yeah,
gardens. Sort of slow and cost 3 balls again, right? Um,
yeah,
color bond, monument grey. Okay, right? Like you've
brilliant.
never seen it
I'm loving
before.
it already.
Brand new stuff. And then I just think Sir Walter to the fence, and then we're done. That's it. We're finished,
Okay.
right? And
Look,
it's more
I
of a
tell you what.
it's more of a statement piece. It's like an abstract artwork. It's avant-garde. It's supposed to create conversation, right? And what do
Yep.
you reckon? What are our chances?
I think you can stand out the front and you can have a chat to people about the Sir Walter.
Oh, mate. Has
No,
anybody
it's
done a garden like that where they've I mean, that's just being stupid. But has anyone done a garden trying to create conversations, trying to be, silly and avant-garde and make a political
um,
statement or something?
there's definitely been a few that have made political statements, and yeah, they've been awesome. They've been really cool. There was one probably maybe the year before I did mine, where I think the original name was Atlas. I'll have to double check that. Um, they did a sinking house, and I'm going to butcher the reasoning behind this, but it was basically um, the message was about climate change and what was it, 3.7 billion? So I've butchered this. I'm so sorry. But yeah, it was quite a political piece um, that spoke about climate change and things that we can do now, and basically a fact that while you were standing here, 3.7 billion trees got lopped, or something along those lines. So yeah, there's
Right.
definitely been gardens that have pushed the boundaries from that aspect, and yeah, you should I should flick it to you after we're done here to put it on the socials. But it was a wild garden, but there has been, I think designers as a whole want to push the boundaries. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Peter Donegan put a plane up in his garden this
Yeah, I
year.
saw
Do you know
that.
what I mean? Like that's pushing the boundaries. That's pretty crazy. Um, and so everyone, I feel, that puts their hat in a ring in a space like that, um, wants to have a conversation about something. Do you know what I mean? So whether it is
Yeah.
just to engage in a potential client, or it's, hey, we can push the boundaries and let's have a conversation about X. Um, Either way, I think everyone wants to have a conversation about whatever they're doing. So, which is fun. It's fun, especially when you get them all together and you start talking a bunch of nonsense. It's fun.
I've thought about this year. So, you may not be aware, but last year we did a series called Makers Month where we got a bunch of tool brands to come on and we interviewed them in a video call like this.
Yeah.
This will get back to me for soon, right? It'll make sense. But one of the things that we are doing this year is we're doing Makers Month again, but we're not doing it over video call. We're doing it with a cameraman. And I'm actually flying to Melbourne, and we're doing some in Perth, we're doing some in Melbourne. And we're
Awesome.
like, show me the tools up front. And it's a major project. We're doing it'll be somewhere between sort of 15 and 20 brands that are getting involved.
Yeah.
All the new releases, get up in front of everything. Like, we're trying to make it really good.
Mm-hmm.
Then I realized I could just do that with the Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show. Take the same
Yeah.
cameraman, fly
Yeah.
over, and do in-person podcasts. That would obviously be short and snappy, not an hour and a half each,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
15, 20, 30 minutes and interview just about all the designers and
Yeah.
see what you can do, because I know that the TV shows happen and the crews do it. And I haven't asked Joel. I don't know if Joel's probably going to listen to this episode, but it has crossed my mind. And it's like, I'll be there
I'll
just
send it to him
clueless.
personally. Yeah.
Yeah, but I actually, I mean, may as well just make the idea completely public. But I was like, oh, I wonder
Yeah.
if I could collaborate with Joel from the landscaping podcast, because he's already there.
Yeah.
Maybe he's doing a garden. I don't even know. I haven't talked to him about it.
Oh, look,
But
he'll always be there.
just walk around together. Yeah, he'll already be there. Walk around together and let's
Yeah.
interview people. And I don't know whether Joel's involved or not, or even if I can make it happen, or we can get it, but because we need a sponsor, because you're paying people, and who covers the costs. But this is an idea that I've had recently
Yeah.
because I'm planning out Makers Month, and I'm like, no, these podcasts, these style of podcasts do really well. Like, if you can balance it between the visual element and just having enough information that people can still just listen to it as a podcast, like, They do
Yeah.
really well, and I feel like there's a good idea in there that can be executed in some way. But anyway, that's something that's crossed my mind.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there is sort of like I'll call it a media day where it's just like the last day of the build before um, the public come through, and there's always
Yeah,
that rush of to try and finish your garden and have a chat with the media and all that kind of stuff. And but yeah, there's always someone in there trying to podcasters and stuff. We had guys from South Australia, I think, coming in, and so yeah, there's lots going on. Lots going on. So yeah, by all means, man, come on down and tag in with Joel. I'm sure he'll take you under his wing.
yep. He'll have some wisecrack jokes.
For
On the
sure, for
subject
sure.
of
Well, look,
Joel,
yeah,
and
go on.
there you go. What were you saying?
Oh, I was going to say when you couple Joel and Ashley James and myself and
Yeah.
mate, we got the rad tag little group there. It'll be fun.
Well, I was going to ask because I was going to say about them. Like, they're the only landscape designers I've had on before you, right? And so it's
Mhm.
nice to have someone who actually has talent. Do you know? Finally on the podcast, because like they're nice, they talk well, and the podcasts are all right. But I feel like we've upped
Yeah.
ourselves a little bit here. You know what I mean? Like they're okay, but
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. Yeah, yeah. Especially Ashley James. I think he's dropped the ball a little bit at the moment. I think he needs to, he needs to sort out what's going on with all his media stuff. He's too many blow waves. I think that's what it is. Too many blow waves. I say that when I've got a
I think
little bit of a blow wave going on too. So.
he. I tell you what, I think he spent about 6 years on this kitchen garden he's doing out in the middle of nowhere, driving 75 hours a
Yeah,
day just to get there. I haven't seen any updates on
yeah,
it, but
yeah.
last time I chatted with him, he was still doing it. But mate, it's taking him
Yeah,
forever.
he's definitely he's been out there for a little while, but I think it's just him and his apprentice. He's just yeah, just those two. That's all it is. So it's going
It's
to take him
it's
probably another four or
yeah,
5 years before they're done. So yeah,
yeah.
we'll see.
I think he's charged about $50 for it as well. So it's I don't know. I don't know what the wife is thinking. I don't know.
Yeah,
Do the
yeah,
kids
yeah.
even see him
He,
anymore?
he
He's working
just
there so much.
Yeah, he just gets a hot meal every now and again. That's all it is.
Yeah,
Lunchtime bickies. That's all it is.
beans on toast.
So
So
yeah, yeah,
talking
yeah,
about talk about your future now, right? So you're taking a year
yeah,
off Miscus. You're
yeah.
focusing on the business, right, and growing that. How's that all
Mm.
going?
Yeah, it's good. I've kind of been looking for a drafts person, someone, well, not such a drafts person, but another designer that can kind of sit underneath me and funnily enough, Joel, who doesn't really have a design part of his business anymore, passed on his designer. So she's sort of come on and we've been working together for the last probably 3 weeks now. So she's amazing. She's so good. So it's been good to not only have someone that can take a bit of the workload, but be a bit of a design sounding board. I think that's important for me as a business owner, me as a designer, where I can just go, hey, am I losing my mind here? Can you just run some fresh eyes over this so it doesn't look complete garbage? So she's been good with that, and I'm pretty frank. Do you know what I mean? Like I'll tell people it's like this design needs some love. Just sort it out or whatever it is. So no, I think we work well together. So that's definitely the first little stepping stone that I wanted to take, just to kind of speed up the wait times as well, because we've been booked out for a little while. So it's been good to kind of get things off my desk now. I just wanted to kind of just have those foundations nice and calm, the processes in place, and have a real direction on sort of where we want to go and the style that we want to create, and obviously the next show gardens, they're a big part of, I guess, what Althaus Landscape Designs is. So showcasing that on a pretty big scale is important, I think. So I was doing a few little writing for the Hort Journal next month, I think it is. That'll be fun.
Yep.
Haven't done anything like that. So lots of little things that are kind of going on at the moment with the business, and just trying to keep across all of it, which I'm sure you can understand is very, very tricky with one person wearing all the hats. It's tough.
I find that the landscape, people on your side of the contractor scene, the landscape designers and the construction side, they blend over a lot of each other, and I do find that some of the people I've talked to complain's not the right word. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for them to juggle both, and maybe they don't find a good construction crew that they can work with all the time. If they go, stuff it, I'll do it myself, or it's the other way around. They're doing a lot of construction. They go, oh man, I hate working with designers. I'm just going to design it myself, and then you end up wearing even more hats, and it's even more difficult to. And is that the way to go? I don't know. Like, it seems like what I'm getting at is the nature of the job almost requires you to be a generalist at some point, or to hire 700 people so that you have a specialist in each role.
I think it's a tricky one, and I think you got to somewhat stay in your lane and have the people that can help you nice and tight. I think it makes you nimble. It makes you more efficient. I think landscapers by trade are generalists. They're good at everything. Do you know what I mean? So there's most landscapers that would be like, I reckon I could have a crack at design, or I reckon I can do everything. I can be foreman. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. It'll kill you. It'll absolutely kill you. And it's that I had that mentality coming into a design business. I was like, I will do everything. I will, and I still do some of it. But consults, design, drafting, presentations, and then you go out and you sometimes do the plant outs, which I love. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love going out on site and getting my hands dirty. That's why I do what I do. But it's a lot of hats to put on. Then you've got like the accountant. Then you got this. Then you got that. Then you got this. And you got still got to be a dad and a good parent. And so all those things, all the hats. But
I've got to get delivery. Life, right? We'll pause this. And I'll get delivery. And I'll be back in a second. Oh, sorry about that. That was my fertilizer delivery. For those listening. Now, we were talking about. It's actually a really good segue because, on topic, because
brilliant.
We had the same problem in the maintenance industry in that it kind of draws you to be a generalist who does everything, because people are like, I want you to fix my retic and sort out my weeds and fix my fungal issues, and I want you to be really good at lawns and gardens and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And it's really hard to be a specialist in specific types of services. One of the things that we did is we stopped doing once-off jobs. We stopped doing that kind of service because the mindset of that kind of client, even though you're doing the same kind of job, you're still mowing a lawn, you're still cutting a hedge. The mindset of that kind of client is a different mindset than the package clients that we do now. And I've even found that there is a shift. You think differently. And so what I mean is, if you go to a job where they're just thinking about hacking back and cutting and making it not overgrown, and then you go to a pristine job, you almost have to change mental gears. You almost have to change the way you think about it, and even that, which seems like a very minor thing, does actually affect your efficiency and affects how you take on jobs, and especially administratively. Like the people we've had doing the admin with us for a long time, they've all said like their job is so much easier just dealing with one type of client. Even it would be it just simplifies things. And anyways, it's kind of like the industry itself draws you to be a generalist. It draws you to be over the top of all these different things, but that's not where the profit is. It's not where a good business often is. And so a challenge of being a business owner is to balance it all out and to be wise about what you say yes and no to.
Yeah. Man, there's so much of that I resonate with. Even touching on with that maintenance stuff, it's like, I mean, I love doing hedges, and I think if we could specialize in doing hedges, you could charge more. You'd have a specialized client, and your business would be more profitable because you're rocking up on site going, right, I know. It's even just a mental thing, right? I know that I'm a specialist at this. So I'm gonna give it 150%, and know that I'm gonna crush these hedges and make them look amazing. I'm not cutting lawn. I'm not anything else. All this other noise doesn't matter to me because this is my job. And I think design's very similar. Like if you can focus in on just that design element of creating gardens, your designs become a lot better. Like I've noticed even since I can offload some tasks, and I'm getting better at delegating to the right people. I've got a web guy, I've got a marketing person now. Do you know what I mean? Like it's all those kind of things. Whereas it's like, oh, my designs are getting better because I don't have the noise of I'm not cutting my grass over here, I'm not weeding here, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. Do you know what I mean? So it makes a big difference, not getting pulled in 17 different ways, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the multitasking fallacy, or there's a better word for it, but you believe when you're doing multiple things at once that you're getting more done. But what actually happens is if you do one thing at a time, you get, you stay in that zone mentally, you get that one thing done, then you change it, you do the next thing. And I feel like it's the same for us. And it's a very difficult thing to balance. Like, you do lawn care packages, and we love doing gardening, right? Like some people hate doing gardening. We love doing gardening, and we know how to charge for it. We know how to quote for it. But it happens. Some of the things that happen are there's a specific type of tool you need, and it could be something as simple as like a saw or something like that. And because most of our work is lawn care, somebody might have left a saw at a job 2 weeks ago, right? Or, a week ago, and they haven't used it since. And they go find it, they don't know where it is. And, or they have a small saw, a small little hand saw on their car at all times, and they really need the chainsaw for this job. But the chainsaw's at the warehouse because you don't use it as much. And what I'm getting at there is, well, now I have to drive back to the warehouse, get the chainsaw, and drive over to the job again. And there's half an hour lost. And it's because you're doing so many different types of services. Because, saw is simple, but you add in fertilizer spreader, Cora, vertimower, cylinder mower, rotary mower, ride-ons,
you've got a bus.
Spraying equipment.
Bus with this stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I quoted this job yesterday, which was a lawn renovation, right? And it was a big job. And the job is going to be somewhere between sort of $6,000 and $12,000, depending on what they go with. If they go for the full thing or... Anyways, we have the equipment to do it. Yeah. And I talked about this on the other day on the podcast that like you start going down this thing and you start spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to these large scale jobs, right? And you're like, oh, but it's great money and this and that. And then what happens is you have all this gear sitting in your warehouse. You don't use it that much. But anyways, I rock up to this lawn renovation and it is riddled with fungal diseases, like really bad. And I might be able to find some photos for you, but like some really bad fungal diseases. And it's like, oh, well, now I've got to communicate with the client what that actually means for them. I'm trying to find these photos for you, but like there's even just that, like even just rocking up to a job and being like, I want to do just a renovation. want to keep it simple, and then fungal disease
Yeah.
happens. And yeah, look, it's
Yeah.
here we go. I've got
It's
the
a
photo,
time.
I believe.
Yeah. See.
But the industry, what I'm saying is the industry requires you can't just be a lawn renovation guy. Then you have to get into fungal disease. And then if you get into
Yeah.
fungal disease, I'll put it up on the screen. Here we go.
Yeah.
There
Right.
you go.
That's
So
crazy.
absolutely riddled, this property,
Okay.
just everywhere. And look, it's what I'm getting at is as soon as you get into fungal diseases, well, the principles of fungal diseases are kind of similar across plants. And so you become a spray technician, you advertise, you do fungal issues, and
Yeah.
then people call
Yeah.
you and they go, well, you're a spray technician. Can you also do weed issues? Can you also do
Yeah.
insect issues? And then
Yeah.
it
It
just,
quickly gets out of hand, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's the tricky thing is when you have all intentions to sort of go down a path of, oh, I want to do this, but then you might not be able to fill your cup with all that, and then so you go with this and that and this and that. It's an easy route to go down if yeah, you have the skill set. Do you know what I mean? If you have the skill set to do all those things, it's easy to kind of slip in and put all those little hats on for a quarter of a day. But it's just it's extremely draining. And I was listening to, I think it was Andrew Huberman, his
Yep.
podcast the other day, and talking about focus and yeah, talking about, obviously this is a bit off topic, but he was saying that the majority of people in today's age are productive for 5 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes, I think it was, per working day. And the reason for that is
What?
when you're focusing on one thing, say you're focusing on a camera and everything, if you're doing maintenance on a camera, let's just say, and everything around your brain when you're thinking about and focusing on this camera is camera related. If you pick up your phone or if you have a conversation, if you do this or do that, and you go back to the camera, the ideas around in your brain, the camera, are no longer camera related. They're about the conversation, they're about the phone, they're all these other things. So tying it back to a business sense, there's so many things that can pull you in different directions. So you can't sit in that like 2 or 3 tier focus level where you're deep in it and giving it such a you're giving it your all. Do you know what I mean? Your whole brain capacity. So I thought that was very interesting, hearing how I guess our focal brain kind of works. I guess he was talking
Yeah.
about phone use and that specifically, but yeah, I drew a parallel to the business world and how easy it is to get kind of pulled in either directions, if you know what I mean.
No, it's 100% right, and just even there's a discipline when you're a small business owner to doing what you need to do and not having someone tell you that. Like when you work for
Yeah,
somebody, they
yeah,
tell you, "I need this done by now," and it's not a self discipline; it's I guess, a fear or a KPI measurement or whatever it is that you're working to.
for sure.
When
Yeah,
you're on your own, that's not what's happening. When you're on your own,
no,
someone's not looking over your shoulder, and those things
yeah,
get more tempting.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's yeah, discipline is it's a tricky one to be on top of, I think. Yeah, especially when you got a little one and yeah, you got a family at home and it's I don't know. You just got to stay across it all. To be honest, I'm disciplined because I have fear that my family's going to eat me goreng for the rest of their lives. So I got to hustle. So
I
yeah,
feel,
that's where
and I feel
that's
that's
where my discipline.
well. We got to finish in a second because talking about your family, you got to go get your daughter.
Yeah,
But I actually
yeah,
probably an interesting thing to end on, because we've gone completely off gardening topics here. Is I watched
yeah.
a clip from another podcast. it was actually from a pastor, but he was talking about studies how the wealthiest or the more kids you have, the more money you earn on average, right? And
Really?
people would think it'd be the opposite because you'd have more time, but it's actually like what you just said. There's this driver in a man where it's like, oh, I've got 4 kids. I
Yeah.
really better earn money. It forces
Yeah.
you to have that drive. Otherwise, they're eating
For
meager egg or
sure.
wheat
Yeah.
bix with no honey or sugar on top. We can't afford
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
I resonate with that a lot. And I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's funny is people would think like, oh, the more kids you have, the poorer you would be. And in a sense, you
Yeah.
have more expenses, right? But it's actually the
Yeah.
more income you earn on average, obviously
Yeah.
everyone's different, but on average,
Yeah.
because
For
it's like, yeah,
sure.
there is this innate driving force in a father who,
Yeah.
goes and takes it on. And I guess on
Absolutely.
that strange note,
Oh, how good.
yeah, I'm too bored now. I've just got to go spend some time on my phone, right? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
enough of my 5 minutes of productivity is over. Thanks for coming on,
Yeah.
Daniel.
Yeah.
Where
Dude,
can we
it's
find you?
no. Well, look, Instagram, Facebook, website, all those fun things. We can chuck down a link.
What's the Instagram called?
But yeah, we're
I had the Instagram up. Althaus Landscape Designs. I'll put it on the screen one more time.
yeah.
There you
Perfect. Go. Awesome.
And
Cool.
yeah, if you guys want something that isn't lawn up to a monument colourblind fence, give them a call. Well, thanks for coming on, mate.
Yeah.
And
Dude, it's been a pleasure.
everybody else, yeah, it has been. Everybody else, I will see you in the next podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. Cheers.